Leadership is not a title, it's influence, and once you fully internalize that, everything about how you show up changes. It's easy to think leadership begins when your business card changes or when someone officially puts you in charge. But the truth is, leadership begins the moment you decide to lead with or without permission. A job title can grant authority, but it can never manufacture respect. Respect is earned in the small moments: how you respond under pressure, how you prepare for meetings, how you treat the people who don't directly benefit you. Leadership is a product of how consistently you show up with discipline, direction, and integrity, especially when it's inconvenient. People don't follow titles, they follow clarity, they follow competence, they follow consistency, and none of those are attached to your job description, they're attached to your character. Real influence isn't loud. It's not dramatic, it's not the person who talks the most in meetings, it's the one whose actions speak so loudly that their presence raises the standard in the room. They're the first to show up prepared. They're the ones asking the tough questions when it's uncomfortable. They take ownership even when it's not their job because they care about the outcome more than their ego. Influence is built through trust. And trust doesn't come from being liked, it comes from being counted on. When your team knows you'll follow through, that you'll say the hard thing, that you'll hold yourself to the same or higher standards you hold them to, that's when your influence starts to scale. Think about the people you admire most in leadership roles. Odds are, it's not because they had the fanciest title. It's because they had a vision and they brought others along with them. They made people better just by the way they showed up. They challenged people, they held high standards, they modeled excellence. Leadership is not about being in charge, it's about taking charge. It's stepping in when others are hesitating. It's taking responsibility when it would be easier to blame. It's choosing long-term impact over short-term comfort. That's what creates lasting influence. Too many people wait to be made leaders. They wait to be promoted. They wait for someone to validate their voice. But if you want to lead, you lead now wherever you are. Because the truth is, the habits that make you an influential leader don't magically show up when you get the title. They are formed right now, in how you manage your time, in how you talk to your team, in how you handle feedback, in how you recover from failure. If you're not leading today, a title won't fix it tomorrow. In organizations, we see this all the time. Someone gets promoted because they were good at their job, not because they know how to lead people. Then they flounder. Why? Because leadership isn't about doing, it's about building. It's about multiplying. It's about influencing others to execute, not just executing yourself. That shift is hard, but necessary, and it starts with redefining what leadership really means. It's not about being the smartest in the room. It's about bringing out the smartest in others. It's not about having all the answers, it's about asking better questions. It's not about control, it's about alignment, and you don't need a title to start doing any of that. You lead by example. You lead by being a person who others want to follow because of your clarity, your character, and your commitment. That's influence and that's leadership. So if you're waiting for a promotion to lead, stop waiting. If you're waiting for a title to act like a leader, you're missing the point. Leadership is already available to you. Influence is already possible, but it starts with you, not your title, not your job description. You lead now where you are, with what you have, and watch how everything starts to change. Impact isn't created in bursts of motivation or spontaneous moments of inspiration. Real, measurable impact is the result of clarity and consistency. It's not glamorous, it's not always exciting, but if you want to lead at a high level and actually move the needle in performance, in culture, in outcomes, you have to get radically clear and then relentlessly consistent. Clarity comes first because you can't hit a target you haven't defined. Most teams don't underperform because they're lazy or unmotivated. They underperform because they're confused. They're trying to read between the lines. They're trying to interpret vague directions. They're trying to figure out what done really means, and that confusion becomes chaos. Clarity eliminates that. When you are clear about goals, roles, values, and expectations, you remove the guesswork. You give your team a finish line they can actually run toward. You create alignment. And when your team is aligned, their energy is focused. They stop wasting time in meetings trying to decipher priorities. They stop spinning their wheels doing work that doesn't matter. They move with purpose, and that creates impact. But clarity without consistency doesn't last, because if you say one thing and do another, or if you're clear this week and silent, the next people don't know what to trust. And when trust breaks, impact dies. Consistency is what makes your clarity stick. It's showing up every day with the same standard, the same language, the same expectations. It's holding people accountable in week 1, week 10, and week 50. It's not about being rigid, it's about being reliable. When you're consistent, your team knows what to expect from you. They don't have to wonder which version of you is going to show up. That psychological safety, that confidence in leadership, is what allows people to take risks, to innovate, to operate at a higher level, because they're not burning energy trying to read you. They're focused on delivering results. Think about the leaders who have impacted you most. They were probably the ones who didn't waver, who were clear about what they expected and who followed through. Their standards didn't fluctuate based on how they felt. They didn't let culture shift just because business got hard. They were consistent in their message, in their actions, and in how they led people. That's what earns respect. That's what creates performance. And yet, this is where so many leaders fail. They assume clarity is a one-time event, a big speech at the all-hands, a memo, a kickoff meeting. But clarity isn't something you announce, it's something you repeat. And then repeat again and again until your team can finish your sentences because your message is that embedded in how you lead. The same goes for consistency. It's easy to be consistent when things are going well. It's a lot harder when you're tired, when you're under pressure, when results aren't coming as fast as you want. That's when leaders are tempted to shift the goalposts or stop enforcing standards, but that's exactly when consistency matters most. Because that's when your team is watching. If you drop your standards under pressure, so will they. Clarity and consistency are not exciting leadership traits. They're not the things that make headlines. But they are the things that build legacies, because over time, they create systems, behaviors, and cultures that scale. They create organizations where people know what's expected, how to deliver it, and what happens if they do or don't. That's how you build high performance. That's how you create real impact. If you want to be a leader who drives change, who builds strong teams, who creates measurable results, focus on clarity. Define everything: the what, the why, the when, and the how. Don't assume your team knows. Don't assume silence means understanding. Spell it out, then be consistent. Live the standard, teach it, enforce it, over-communicate, be the example, build the habits. Create the systems, show up with the same energy on the hard days that you do on the good ones, because leadership isn't about intensity, it's about consistency. It's not about occasional inspiration, it's about daily alignment. And the leaders who make the biggest impact are the ones who commit to being clear and consistent every single day. Inspiration is one of the most misunderstood parts of leadership. People think it's where you start, that if you say the right words or deliver the right speech, people will suddenly perform better. But the truth is, inspiration isn't an input you sprinkle on top of a meeting or a moment. It's not something you give to get results. Inspiration is an outcome. It's what happens when you lead with purpose, consistency, and excellence. It's earned, not handed out. You can't inspire people into performing if your systems are broken, your culture is unclear, or your expectations shift every week. You can't talk people into believing in a mission that isn't backed by action. You can't just post quotes on a wall and expect that to drive execution. Real inspiration, the kind that creates loyalty, effort, and transformation, comes when people see something worth believing in, not when they hear it. Your team isn't inspired by big words, they're inspired by follow through. They're inspired when the standard is held and the mission is lived. They're inspired when you show up prepared, focused, and aligned day after day. They watch how you handle setbacks. They watch how you respond when no one's clapping. That's when inspiration is either earned or lost. People are inspired when your actions match your message, when your values show up in every decision, when your expectations are real and lived. That's what creates belief. Because belief doesn't come from hype, it comes from proof, and you create proof by showing up and doing the hard, boring, important work over and over again. One of the fastest ways to lose trust as a leader is to try to motivate through words when your behavior tells a different story. When you talk about excellence but let mediocrity slide, when you preach accountability but avoid hard conversations, when you ask your team for urgency but you're slow to act, that gap between what you say and what you do, that's where inspiration dies. Your job isn't to inspire people with words, it's to be so clear, so prepared, so consistent that your execution inspires them by itself. The leader who knows the plan, holds the standard, owns their mistakes, and lives the mission, that's the leader people want to follow. That's the kind of behavior that inspires without saying a word. Think about the most inspiring people in your life. Were they always giving speeches? Probably not. They were likely the ones who were steady, present, focused. They made you want to level up because of how they carried themselves. That's the secret. Real inspiration doesn't call attention to itself. It moves in alignment, and people are drawn to that. There's also a false belief that you have to be naturally inspirational to lead well. That if you're not the loudest, most charismatic person in the room, you can't inspire anyone, but that's not true. You don't need a big personality to be inspiring. You need clarity. You need high standards. You need relentless execution. That's what creates momentum. That's what builds belief. Inspiration is a byproduct of leadership done right. When your team sees that you don't back down when it's hard, that you don't change the rules halfway through, that you don't sacrifice the mission for comfort, they feel safe. They feel motivated. They feel like they're part of something worth giving their best to. And that's when they become inspired. But here's the hard part. You won't always feel inspirational. You won't always be in the mood. Leadership is full of repetition, setbacks, and unglamorous effort. You'll have days where nothing goes right, and on those days it's tempting to fall back on hype instead of action. Don't stay the course, stay focused, because the people around you are watching how you lead through those moments. That's when you earn their belief. Inspiration is not something you push, it's something you pull by leading in a way that's worth following. When you do that, your team doesn't just listen, they buy in. They commit. They carry the vision even when you're not in the room. That's not because you gave a great speech. It's because you led with purpose. So stop trying to manufacture inspiration. Build it. Build it with clarity. Build it with consistency. Build it by showing people what it looks like to care deeply, work relentlessly, and lead with integrity. That's how you create a culture that performs. That's how you become a leader who inspires, not because you said the right thing, but because you did the right thing over and over again. Inspiration is one of the most misunderstood parts of leadership. Too many people chase it like it's something you can manufacture, like if you speak the right way, share the right story, or post the right quote, your team will suddenly be lit on fire with motivation. But that's not how real leadership works, because inspiration isn't an input you deliver, it's an outcome you earn. Inspiration comes after people see who you are, not before. It's what happens when your team watches you operate with consistency, discipline, and purpose. They don't feel inspired because you said something clever. They feel inspired because you showed them what it looks like to hold a standard, to keep a promise, to do the hard thing without needing a round of applause. This is where most leaders go wrong. They think their job is to pump people up, to be the motivational engine behind every task, but that approach creates dependence. It teaches people to wait on you for energy instead of building it themselves through discipline and clarity. And even worse, it masks the real work of leadership, which is not emotional, it's operational. You inspire people by being the most prepared person in the room. You inspire them when you show up early, overcommunicate expectations, and follow through no matter how you feel. You inspire them when you hold yourself to the standards you expect from them, even when no one's watching. People are inspired by execution. They are inspired by excellence. They are inspired by someone who sets a vision and then works like hell to bring it to life. And the best part, that kind of inspiration doesn't burn out. It doesn't need music behind it or a TD talk tone. It's real, it's sustainable, it's rooted in trust. If you want to inspire your team, stop trying to sound inspiring and start leading in a way that demands respect. Lead with action, lead with follow through, lead with the kind of clarity that makes it easy for people to believe in what you're building because they can see it working. This is especially important in times of uncertainty or change. When things are hard, your team isn't looking for someone to hype them up. They're looking for someone they can trust, someone who's steady, someone who's consistent. That's what creates safety, and safety is the foundation of inspiration. If your team doesn't feel safe, they won't feel inspired. They'll feel anxious, guarded, and cautious. But when they see a leader who's unwavering, who's calm under pressure, focused on the mission, and aligned in words and actions, that changes the environment. People feel empowered to take risks. They feel motivated to contribute. They start to believe in something bigger than themselves because you modeled what that looks like. Inspiration doesn't come from performance. It comes from presence, being fully present with your team, listening, teaching, coaching, being available when it matters. Most people don't need a cheerleader. They need a leader, someone who makes them feel capable, trusted, and challenged to grow. That also means giving feedback. Real inspiration doesn't come from praise alone. It comes from being held to a higher standard. When you tell someone, you can do better, and then support them in doing so, that's powerful. It shows belief, it shows investment, it creates growth, and growth is deeply inspiring. So if you're leading a team and you're wondering how to inspire them, don't ask what you can say to them, ask what example you can set. Ask what systems you can put in place that remove friction and increase clarity. Ask how consistent you've been in reinforcing the behaviors that drive results. Ask whether you've made it easy for people to succeed under your leadership. Inspiration is not an energy you deliver, it's a reaction you earn. You don't lead by emotion, you lead by principle, and when you do that long enough, consistently enough, your team will not only follow, they'll begin to lead like that themselves. And that's the real goal of leadership, not to motivate people in the moment, but to build something inside them that lasts well beyond you. Something that fuels their growth, sharpens their discipline, and teaches them what excellence looks like. That's what inspiration really is, and that's how great leaders create it, not with words, but with example. Too often, leaders focus on trying to be inspirational. They walk into rooms hoping to motivate, to excite, to stir emotion in their team. But here's the truth: inspiration is not where you start. It's what you earn, not what you manufacture. It's the result of how you lead, not the strategy for leading. Trying to inspire as your first move is like trying to skip steps in the process. It's surface level, it might work for a moment, but it doesn't create real, lasting engagement. Why? Because people aren't inspired by words, they're inspired by results. They're inspired by seeing their leader execute day after day, especially when things get hard. Your team doesn't need you to be a motivational speaker. They need you to be consistent, clear, and accountable. They need to know that when you say something, you mean it, that when you set a target, you'll be there pushing toward it just like you expect them to. They need to see you make hard decisions with confidence, admit when you miss, and own the outcome. That's what earns their respect. That's what leads to inspiration. Think about it. When was the last time you were truly inspired by someone? Was it because they gave a great speech, or was it because you watched them do something difficult with integrity? Inspiration comes from watching someone live out the values they claim to believe in over and over again. Leaders who inspire without even trying are the ones who are relentlessly prepared. They're the ones who are so aligned with their mission, so focused on performance, and so committed to excellence that their team feels it without needing to be told. Inspiration is what happens after your team sees how you operate. It's what follows when they watch you show up for the early meetings, follow through on commitments, and hold yourself to the same standard you demand from them. It's the byproduct of your example, not your energy. And here's the kicker: when you focus on execution, discipline, and alignment, you actually become more inspiring than if you tried to be motivational. Because now, your team isn't just hearing about high standards, they're watching you live them. And that moves people in a way words never can. You want to inspire your team. Don't try to be impressive. Try to be consistent. Try to be clear. Try to be someone they can count on, not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's not. Because when people see you showing up with purpose, when they see you solve problems with calm and clarity, when they see you own your results, they start to believe that they can do the same, and that's real inspiration. Not hype, not emotional manipulation, just leadership in action. Inspiration doesn't come first. It comes after trust, after clarity, after consistency. It's an outcome of leadership done well, and you don't have to chase it if you're already leading with intention.